This is Channel 2, Cedar Rapids and Waterloo.
WMT Newswatch at 6. Jeff Thompson, Dave Shay, and the entire Newswatch team report the day's events. Radar weather with meteorologist Conrad Johnson and Ron Gonder with the sports.
Good evening. Firemen in Marshall County are still sifting through the smoking debris of a farmhouse for bodies following a fire that has claimed at least one life. The body of a child was recovered from the site this afternoon. It has not been identified, but officials fear that 39-year-old Tom Andrews and his 3 children aged 15, 12, and 10 may all have perished in the fire. Officials believe that Andrews reported the fire at about 3 a.m. and then re-entered the burning house in an effort to save the children. The children's mother, Shirley, is separated from her husband. The cause of the fire is not yet known.
A Lynn County Sheriff's deputy has been fired because he took sick leave and then showed up at an election night victory party. Mike Walter is here with details.
Well, Jeff, Sheriff Walter Grant fired Deputy John Remitko for malingering, specifically calling in sick, but recovering quick enough to join a political celebration the same night he called in sick. Remitko's a 7-year veteran of the Sheriff's Department and a pro at run-ins with Sheriff Grant this year. Remitko told me he got sick about 4 hours before his duty ended November 3rd. He says he went home, then drove to the Isaac Walton Gun Club to pick up his fiancée. Now, she was attending a victory celebration for Sheriff-elect Orley Workman. Remitko says he stayed here only a few minutes and then left. Sheriff Grant said bluntly he's not telling the truth. Remitko has appealed the firing to the Civil Service Commission. He did not want to talk on film for fear of turning off the commissioners. I talked with Sheriff Grant later on today, and he didn't want to go on film either, but he did deny that this is a grudge firing. Grant said, "I'm still sheriff, and they're going to do what I tell them," presumably meaning the deputies. If they call it a grudge, well, so be it. This firing comes at a rough time for Deputy Remitko. He's got to buy Christmas presents for 5 kids, has no income and no vacation pay coming to him. Jeff?
The Cedar Rapids noise ordinance today was struck down in Lynn County District Court. Maggie Jensen reports that the ordinance was declared unconstitutional.
The suit against the city contesting the validity of the noise ordinance was filed by Cedar Rapids resident Robert Heiderscheid. The defense maintained that the ordinance was vague and therefore unconstitutional. Lynn County Associate District Court Judge Tony Scalero agreed. In his opinion, Scalero called the ordinance constitutionally horrifying. He says the definitions of terms on the first page of the ordinance need defining. Scalero said the ordinance is so vague that men of common intelligence must guess as to its meaning and differ as to its application. He also said he could not find out where a sound level meter, which is used to measure sound, could be purchased, borrowed, begged, or stolen. The ordinance is Safety Commissioner Eldon Colton's baby. He says it was drawn up according to federal guidelines. Colton was miffed by what he saw to be nitpicking on Scalero's part.
Judge Scalero is not acquainted with this equipment, obviously, so I assume it'll take him some time to find out there is a decibel and that it can be measured and that there is an accurate way to measure it, and such type of equipment is readily available if he would like to find out where to get it.
Colton sees Scalero's ruling as only a temporary setback for his noise ordinance. He says he will consult the city attorney about clarifying language in it and appealing Scalero's ruling. Meanwhile, the Cedar Rapids noise ordinance will no longer be in effect. Maggie Jensen, WMT Newswatch, Cedar Rapids.
19 below zero and no heat. We'll have that chilling story from Waterloo.
And also some words from the resigning mayor of Dubuque when Newswatch continues.
Life is unpleasant enough when the temperature plummets to 19 below zero, but Newswatch reporter Tom Rudquist says life was almost unbearable today for some Waterloo residents.
When it rains, it pours, and when it's cold, it freezes. And that's just what happened at a power transformer in Waterloo early this morning. The record low mercury drop caused a strain on some wires at a substation. An insulator cracked, and some 860 homes were without heat from 34 minutes up to nearly 3 hours. But other homeowners found the daytime chill an unwelcome visitor for other reasons. Furnace repairmen say their busy day came because homeowners just hadn't done their fall furnace cleaning, and that meant that furnaces were often putting out fumes but little heat.
Well, they're just sitting up. Well, most of them are just sitting up, and where it's just people not getting them clean as they should. I mean, we recommend, they're going by recommendations, they're waiting too long. get them clean, they're just plugging up on them.
Car owners were also labeled as being unprepared by gas station dealers who were kept busy repairing, towing, and starting stalled cars. Waterloo's AAA alone estimates it received some 350 car start calls at $5 a start. The chilling temperature also meant that industries like John Deere and Rath Packing were forced to curtail their use of natural gas. Because of the shortage of that resource, large-scale gas users are at the bottom of the list to receive those supplies.
The residential and small commercial customers are the top priority for natural gas because they have no other means of heating their homes or buildings.
The temperature finally rose above the zero mark this afternoon, but with a forecast of more sub-zero readings overnight, it appears that car starters and furnace repairmen are in for some short coffee breaks in the near future. Tom Rudquist, WMT Newswatch, Waterloo.
The cold weather is not helping solve a water problem in the Louisa County town of Columbus Junction. The town is apparently losing between 50 and 60,000 gallons of water every day. Officials believe that the town's water main is broken, but service has now been restored to most residences in the town. Dubuque Mayor Al Lund has resigned effective January 3rd. Lund has served 3 years of his 4-year city council term. The mayor says his civic duties have taken a toll on his architectural business and that he must have more time to devote to it. Newswatch asked Lund if he thinks the city council will have any difficulty in finding a successor.
I hope that they're able to pick a person and then proceed on until the next general election. I had not thought about the possibility of a special election. I hope they don't go that way. I don't want to see the city spend $6,000 in the interest of replacing one person. So I do hope that they go ahead and pick someone, which I think they have the right to do.
Lund would not say whom he thinks will be chosen to take his seat in the city council, but in keeping with tradition, Councilman Mike Stackus will probably become the next mayor.
A referendum on the proposed purchase of the Aquin High School building in Cascade may be presented to western Dubuque County voters early next year. Superintendent Wayne Drexler says he hopes that the $2.2 million bond issue referendum will be held on January 25th. 670 signatures are needed to hold the bond election. Some 200 have been collected so far. Iowa House District 22 Democrats and Republicans will meet tonight to select their candidates for the seat vacated by Morris Hennessy. Dubuque County Health Board member Sharon Barr is the only Democrat who has publicly shown interest in her party's nomination. On the Republican side, Nancy Shimanek of Monticello has been mentioned as a possibility. Hennessy resigned from the House after being nominated by the Democrats to run for the state Senate.
Coming next, details on the swine flu makeup clinics that are scheduled in eastern Iowa.
And a new plan to combat bad checks.
Lynn County Health Director Al Ahern today confirmed what Newswatch and the State Health Department had reported last night, that there will be a swine flu makeup clinic Wednesday, December 15th in Lynn County. Rick Leonard has a report.
Despite earlier statements to the effect that additional swine flu immunization clinics would be held only in the case of an outbreak, Ahern said today an additional 15,000 doses of vaccine will be available at the Salvation Army Hall, 1000 C Avenue Northwest, December 15th. There have been no cases of swine flu reported in Iowa. Ahern said the county health department is most concerned about the 10,000 or so 18 to 24-year-olds who have already been vaccinated, but by state recommendation should have a second shot 4 or more weeks after the first. Ahern is also encouraging those high-risk children who didn't get a booster shot last weekend to do so. Vaccine will also be made available to the general public 18 and over who never got an immunization. Ahern says the change in planned clinics came from the state health department.
They had the whole state to cover. Their coverage was not as good as they expected, which gave them some surplus vaccine. The government has sent in more vaccine. It's been hard to determine from the government just how much extra vaccine the state would get, if any. And it's just come down to the fact that only now has the state been in the position to give us a commitment for this much vaccine.
About 62% of those eligible were vaccinated in Lynn County, compared to about 50% statewide. Ahern says that's not enough to prevent an epidemic, but he doesn't expect many unimmunized people to change their minds and take the shot. I'm Rick Leonard, WMT Newswatch, Cedar Rapids.
Johnson County will also hold a makeup clinic on December the 15th. Blackhawk counties will be on December the 14th. Both Lynn and Johnson need volunteers to help staff their clinics.
Iowa Attorney General Richard Turner has filed suit to have the Jasper County attorney removed from office. Turner says Kenneth Whitehead should be ousted for corruption, extortion, and maladministration. Last week, Whitehead was charged with concealing stolen property and interfering with the administration of justice. Attorney General Turner says Whitehead promised a Newton woman immunity from prosecution in exchange for sexual favors. A lot of merchants get burned during the Christmas season by bad checks, but Newswatch reporter Chuck Malloy says an Iowa City man has come up with a system which may help solve that problem.
For years, merchants have been trying to find a way to keep people from passing bad checks. The Christmas rush makes a store owner more susceptible to bad checks simply because of increased volume. Merchants used to keep blacklists, but federal law prohibits those. Now, C.D. Woldrick, who heads a collection agency, has come up with a system called Check It. Check It is a list of bank account numbers matched to the Social Security numbers of checking accounts which have in the past proven to be unreliable. Woldrick says this system is not blacklisting.
This cannot be considered blacklisting because the Fair Credit Reporting Act states that you can produce a protective bulletin in a coded system so that nothing is identifiable on this list unless the individual triggers the information himself. You could lose this list in the street and no one would know what it is.
Woldrick says he hopes to set up similar systems in Cedar Rapids and Waterloo. The program is new, but area merchants are enthusiastic about it. The best part of the plan, says one stoner, is the fact that it'll deter the repeat offenders. So if you're out to bounce a check this Christmas, you better be careful because C.D. Woldrick may have your number. Chuck Malloy, WMT Newswatch, Iowa City.
Ron Gonder will bring us a look at those winning Hawkeyes when Newswatch continues.
Now, the Hawkeyes have won 4 games, 4-0. Is that what it is now?
Yep.
Now, these are non-season games, though.
Non-conference.
They're non-conference. And the question is, how indicative is that record of how good they're going to do this season?
Well, I think it's a good indication. I think, you know, they're surprising to me. I'm sure they're surprised to everybody, and maybe we should have upped that season forecast.
Maybe they'll do better than 6th place.
Could be. Could be, yeah. Let's take a look at some of the action from that game at the Iowa Fieldhouse last night with Bradley. Bruce King was the leading Iowa scorer, and you'll see him in action here with 19 points. There's 2 of them, and he also had 13 rebounds for the night. King had a very solid game, putting 2 of them back-to-back after the outstanding performance that he had at Drake. And you'll see him there tip one home. 5 of the Iowa players had career highs. Bill Mayfield, for one. There he is on a stuff. He had 14 points, and he also, I thought, played a very solid game all the way around. Disappointing thing, of course, was that Iowa built up a 19-point lead and then lost that lead, had Bradley cut it down to 2 as Mayfield hits another one there, but Iowa managed to hang on and go on for the victory. Dick Paith, along with Ronnie Lester and Clay Hargrave, all had their career highs as Hawkeyes, as did Terry Drake. Michigan is #1 on both the college basketball polls this week. They're #1 on AP today, just as they were on UP yesterday, and Marquette and UCLA are the numbers 2 and 3 teams. Indiana and Louisville have fallen out of the top 10. The Illinois basketball team figures to be better than they were last year, being picked to finish 5th in the Big Ten, just ahead of Iowa. Lou Henson starts his 2nd season at Illinois. I asked him if he was feeling better about his 2nd time around the league. Afraid we won't be able to have that interview with Lou Henson. Boys high school basketball polls are out today. First time they've been out this season. Cedar Rapids Regis is #1 on the combined Class 2A and A poll, and they're followed by Iowa City Regina there. In 3A, Marshalltown is #1 on one poll, Des Moines Hoover on the other. Bob Blackman is the football coach at Cornell today, as had been rumored, and he, of course, was fired at Illinois, takes over in the Ivy League again, and he coached at Dartmouth for 6 seasons and had great success when he was there. Utah today named Wayne Howard as its new football coach. He comes from Long Beach State. He takes over for Tom Lovat, who was fired, and Lovat had 2 years left on his 5-year contract. The Iowa wrestling team had a great weekend, didn't it? They won another one. A one-sided match last night from a team that's usually a powerhouse, Lehigh. They beat Lehigh last night in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania by a score of 34-3. That makes Iowa now 6-0 on the season in dual meets, and next will be Drake at the Fieldhouse on Thursday night. So, boy, I don't know. I would have to say that that Iowa team is going to be favored again for another national title the way they're wrestling.
With some of the coaches they have, I can believe it. That's great. Conrad is calling for continued cold temperatures. His forecast in a moment.
Stock prices closed slightly lower today as investors took profits on the 40-point gain in the market since Election Day. Trading was active. On the commodity markets, hog prices were $1 to $1.50 higher. Cattle were steady to strong. Corn was 2 cents lower, and soybeans were 5 cents lower. And this, Conrad, is looking more and more like the winter that the snowmobilers and cars started to find out, isn't it?
Yeah, the third time in the last 2 weeks we broke record minimum temperatures, sub-zero all over Iowa, so it's certainly looking like the old-fashioned winters did.
Like they used to be.
Yeah, like they say they used to be. The satellite today showed the most prominent cloudiness along the eastern seaboard, actually, from the lower Mississippi Valley and Louisiana north and eastward up along the middle Atlantic states. It has been mostly rain in the middle Atlantic states, except turning to snow as a cold front moved through the Appalachian Ranges into western Pennsylvania and New York. In Iowa, all you can see there is mostly a cloud cover and not much else. There has been some snow working to the western half of the state during the day. It has been fairly light. Most significant amounts have been in eastern South Dakota, 2 to 3 inches around Aberdeen and Huron in a 12-hour period. And temperatures still holding in the single digits. In fact, not even getting above zero in upstate Minnesota, -5 at mid-afternoon at International Falls. This Arctic high-pressure system is building slowly southeastward. The most significant factor today in the plain states has been this low-pressure wave. It's been moving very rapidly from eastern Montana and western North Dakota last night to its current position near Topeka in northeastern Kansas. In the process, it's been spreading snow south and eastward and kicked around by 50 to 60 mile-an-hour winds in central South Dakota. The temperature at Rapid City was 17, and it was snowing at late afternoon hours and 22, although very light snow, at Billings, Montana. And also in the northeast sections of Colorado and the foothills of the Rockies, up to 70 mile-an-hour winds have been reported today as this low continues to track south and eastward. It's been drawing in a lot of warm air ahead of it at Albuquerque 47, and it was 47 also at Salt Lake City and hitting just over 50 in parts of western Kansas around Dodge City at 52 at mid-afternoon. It was 67 at Phoenix, 61 at San Francisco, and the pattern of rain continues over the northwestern states and most of Washington, Oregon, and working into western Montana, becoming some light snow in northwest Montana, where Kalispell had 3 inches in a 6-hour period this morning. Of course, that's a higher elevation. Temperatures fairly mild around Seattle this afternoon, while to the east, a major storm has been moving rapidly northward along the middle Atlantic seaboard with 2.2 inches of rain at Hatteras, North Carolina in 6 hours this forenoon. 57 degrees at Charleston, South Carolina, and better than 50 even as far north as Portland, Maine with 51. It was 85 at mid-afternoon at Miami Beach, and turning to snow, of course, in western sections of New York and southward into the Appalachians as the colder air began to make itself felt, with Nashville 31, St. Louis 14, and 18 at Chicago, 7 above at the Twin Cities at mid-afternoon. In Iowa, only in the single digits this afternoon after record-breaking lows this morning, including the -14 at Cedar Rapids and the -19 at Waterloo. It was a -10 at Waukon, a -17 at Mason City, and it was a -12 out at Sioux City. This afternoon, 3, 4, and 5 up to 9 and 10 degrees in eastern Iowa. Snow has been continuing very lightly over the western half of the state, and at 6 o'clock has spread eastward to just west of Waterloo and just east of Des Moines. It is slowly spreading eastward, but it is quite light. Temperatures at 6 o'clock, 3 above at Mason City, 10 above at Des Moines, 16 at Council Bluffs for the warm spot, 5 Waterloo, 4 Dubuque, and 6 in Cedar Rapids. The forecast after this.
Conrad Johnson's Weather Watch has the seal of approval of the American Meteorological Society.
The pattern during the next 48 hours is going to be alternating between fairly cold temperatures and intermittent snow. Tonight, the light snow will be moving rapidly south and eastward out of the state. It won't be as cold as last night because we will have the protection of the clouds, but it'll still be slightly below zero for overnight lows, around 2 to 6 below. Tomorrow, the low pressure will be out of the picture. This high will have dropped down into southern Minnesota, maintaining a northeasterly wind and partly cloudy skies. This means continued cold, high temperatures recovering about 7 or 8 degrees higher than today in most cases. More snow moving back in here tomorrow night, Dave.
We may look back and tell our grandchildren about that winter of 76, 77.
Think they'll believe it?
I don't know. Looking back on the day in Iowa, a house fire in Marshall County has claimed 1 life, and 3 other members of the rural Melbourne family are feared dead. And the Cedar Rapids noise ordinance was declared unconstitutional today. By Lynn County Associate Judge Anthony Scalero, he called it vague. That's the news for now. Join us again tonight at 10.